We're going to now talk about paper piecing. So there are more than one kind of paper piecing. There is English paper piecing, where you have paper templates that you are going to stitch around. And I've done this in a class, which is available through So Creative. Today we're going to talk about machine paper piecing, which is occasionally called foundation paper piecing. You are working on a piece of paper that tears away after you sew it, and it makes it very easy to tear away because it's a specially crafted piece of paper. It's not just your normal Xerox paper. And for your block of the month, we are always going to give you the paper to use. So you have to sew very carefully because you're only being given the number of pieces that you need, but we will be giving it to you. So this is our design, and what we're going to do first of all is talk about the other things you need. So you absolutely should have an add a quarter ruler. This is an add a quarter plus, and I love it. I highly recommend that you get the add a quarter plus. And you also want this hot ruler. It works with your iron, and it's wonderful for paper piecing. It's wonderful for ironing hems, all kinds of things, because it can take the heat of your iron and it will give you a nice crisp edge. Other than that, you just need a new needle in your machine, and you're going to be using a shorter stitch length. Plus, you need a rotary cutter and mat because you're going to be doing a lot of cutting, and I will tell you there is a lot of waste in this technique. So first of all, I'm going to use my quick trim ruler, which I always love and recommend in beginning quilting, and I'm going to line it up on the paper pattern, and I'm going to cut the paper pattern in half, straight down the middle diagonally. Okay? Then I am going to take a pen and I am going to make a notation for myself so that I know which fabric is going to go where. So I've got a blue background. I'm going to put a B for all my background. And because I'm using green, I'll put a G for the green. And I'm going to do that on all of the pieces because I really do not want to get myself confused. And it's very easy to do because you're kind of working backwards and upside down when you're doing this. Okay, so now I have two mirror images. I could start sewing both of them at the same time, but I'm going to work on one and then I'll show you the other and we'll put it together. The first thing that you want to do is you want to fold between the B and the G. We're going to start with the longest seam first. And one thing to keep in mind is that you never want to sew past the edge. You want to stop right at the point. So I am going to put my hot ruler right down on this line, and I'm going to fold back against the hot ruler so that I get a nice crease. Okay? And then I'm going to take my two fabrics and I'm going to put them right sides together. Now we have an advantage because we're using a woven for our background fabric, so there is no right side. But definitely with the green fabric, there is a right side. And I have cut these 2 3/4 inches. I am telling you to cut them large because it's miserable when you sew a piece on and you come up short. So yes, there's waste, but it will save you a lot of headache later on. So I know that my blue is going to be the one right here, and the green is going to be the one that flips out to this side. So that's why I have them right sides together. You can see I'm starting in a little from the edge because I want to make sure that I don't have any problem. And I'm lining up this line about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of my two fabrics. Okay, I'm going to put pins here and I'm going to sew on this line using a smaller stitch length. I'm going to start right here and end right here, and I'll be back. I've now sewn exactly on the line, sewing the two fabrics right sides together. I have ironed the green fabric flat, and I did use the pressing pen to make sure that it stayed really nice and flat. Now I'm going to flip it over, and this is where you're going to start seeing the waist. I'm going to put my ruler 1/4 of an inch beyond the paper. Make sure that you never cut right along the paper. You want to give yourself that extra 1/4 of an inch. Always. Otherwise your blocks will not go together. Again, this is the line for the edge of my block. So now I can cut on the paper because I'm just trimming away. But I'm definitely giving 1/4 of an inch beyond the block itself. Here we're going to do it again. And I like to clean up after each row just because there's a lot of excess fabric and I like to get it out of the way. So there's not that much you can do with this unless you really like tiny little pieces, which I don't. Okay, so the next, you know what? I can tell that I used my friction pen because my B's and my G's disappeared. So I'm going to write them again in pencil so that doesn't happen. So here's the B and here's the G. That's a good warning for you. Don't use your friction pen when you know you're going to iron. Okay, so my next piece is going to be the B because we've just sewn the B and the G. So what I'm going to do is put my hot ruler here. I'm going to fold back, and you can see there's quite a bit of green that I'm going to cut away. The way I'm going to do it is now with this fold, I'm going to take my add 1/4 ruler and just butt it up right against the fold. And it has a little groove here that fits perfectly against that fold so that I can cut easily. So I'm going to cut all the way across. And now you can see I have that pointy point, which is this one right here. So now I have to put a blue piece on, and I'm just going to take my blue strip and I'm going to line it right up along this cut line, flip it over, take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew right on that line. Now, I'm going to make sure that it is exactly lined up on the blue because I want to give myself that 1/4 of an inch, which my add 1/4 ruler allowed. And don't forget, I'm doing this piece here. So I'm going to let this hang out because I want to make sure that I have enough fabric to cover that area. I'll sew and I'll be right back. Once again, I've sewn from exactly here to the point here, and I'm going to trim my blue fabric by lining up on the line of the block and making sure that I give it an extra 1/4 of an inch beyond. I've ironed it, and here we go. So now I'm going to take my hot ruler and line it up right here on that line and fold my paper over it. And again, I'm going to take my add 1/4 ruler, line the groove right up on my paper, and trim away the excess blue fabric. So now I have 2 blues and a green. So now I need to put my green on. And you can see I'm kind of close here, so that wasn't good. I should have allowed a little bit more fabric on the end, but it will be okay because I still can squeeze in that 1/4 inch. So now I'm going to make sure that the green hangs out further. I'm going to line it up exactly on top of the blue. You can see that. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to sew from here to here. And I'll be back. So now I've sewed the greens and the blues. I'm going to flip it over, and once again, I'm going to trim the excess away. So I'm on the edge of the paper, and I'm going to trim this part. And I can also trim this part that's hanging over to get it out of my way and to make it look a whole lot nicer. And I'm going to flip this over my iron ruler, my hot ruler, and I'm going to bring my add a 1/4 ruler over here. Always remember that you have to add that 1/4, because if you cut right along your ruler, you're going to have a big problem. You have to use that add a 1/4 ruler. And now I know that this is blue, so I'm going to put a blue piece here. And I'm going to continue finishing this one, and I will do this one, and then I'm going to show you how you're going to put them all together. I'll be back. I'm going to show you how I pin the 2 pieces together now. And I'm using very long pins, as you can see. So I've got my first pin right where the fabrics come together. And I'm going to find the exact same spot on the other piece. And I'm going to mess around with it a little to make sure that it is exactly where those lines, stitching lines, come together. And then I'm going to take that pin and I'm going to try and make sure that this line matches up with this line when I pin it, or approximately. And you see it didn't. So I want to get them pretty close together so that when the pieces go together, they'll be very straight. So we'll do one last pin. And again, I'm going to go right here at the very end of my stitching line. And I'm going to find the same spot on the other side, which isn't always the easiest to do, but I'll do the best we can. And now I'm going to put the pin in so that it's right along that outside line. And I'll sew right along that 1/4 inch seam. I'll probably start from up here because it's nice and smooth, and I'll take out the pins as I go, and then we'll look at it one more time. So here is our finished block. I want to show you on the back side, I ironed the seams open. I don't usually do that, but there's a lot of thickness here, so I felt that that was the best way to go. On the front side, everything matches pretty nicely. And we've got our 1/4 inch seam allowance for when we add it to other blocks. You can pull out the paper at this point, or you can wait until you have put it next to another block and sewn those seams. But you have a perfect 1/4 inch, so you don't have to worry about that. And the papers should come out pretty easily. If there's a little bit of paper left, it's not the end of the world. You can always stick a pin under or scissors under and try and get that little bit out. Or, you know, if you ever wash the quilt, it will dissolve in the washing machine and you won't have to worry about it. You're definitely not going to feel those little bits through all the thicknesses of fabric. So that's how you do paper piecing by machine. And you know it's foundation paper piecing because you've got that foundation paper that you're working with. And that's it.